All right, let's talk about a book that has, and I'm not exaggerating here, emotionally devastated an entire generation of readers. I'm talking, of course, about Madeline Miller's phenomenal novel, The Song of Achilles. So let's break down what makes this book so completely unforgettable.
I had to start with this quote because, honestly, it's the most accurate warning you will ever get about this book. This isn't just a story, you guys. It's an experience. It has this legendary reputation for making people just sob, like uncontrollably. And the craziest part? Somehow you finish it and you're grateful for the heartbreak. It's wild.
Now here's something wild. This book actually came out way back in 2011. But then, a whole decade later, in 2021, it just exploded. And you can thank Book Talk for that. A whole new generation found it, and these viral videos of people just bawling their eyes out, well, they turned this pretty quiet novel into a massive global bestseller.
All right, Section 1, the book that wrecks you. So what is this book that leaves everyone in a puddle on the floor? Well, at its core, it's a retelling of the Trojan War. But here's the brilliant part. Miller shoves all the epic battles into the background. Instead, she zooms all the way in on the intimate, super-personal love story between Achilles and his companion, Patroclus. You know, that relationship people have been debating for literally centuries.
And you gotta remember, way before it was a TikTok sensation, this book was already a critical darling. I mean, it won the prestigious Orange Prize for Fiction back in 2012. So yeah, it's got some serious literary muscle to back up all those tears. This isn't just an emotional roller coaster, it's a genuinely beautifully written piece of art.
Okay, on to Section 2. Let's meet Achilles and Patroclus. Because, honestly, their dynamic is the heart of this entire story. It's a classic case of opposites attract, but, dialed up to a mythological level.
So, on one hand, you've got our narrator, Patroclus. He's this kinda awkward, gentle prince who's been exiled from his home. He really sees himself as a nobody, just a side character in someone else's big story. And then you have Achilles. He's the son of a goddess, a golden demigod, basically the Justin Bieber of ancient Greece. He's ridiculously famous, ridiculously talented, and destined for greatness. One is the destined storm, and the other, he's the quiet anchor.
So when Patroclus, this exiled prince, shows up at the court of Phthia, he meets Achilles. And against all odds, the golden boy, the hero, chooses the quiet outcast to be his companion. And that first meeting, it sparks this instant connection that just blossoms into this inseparable bond that's going to define both of their lives forever. Section 3, Love Against Prophecy. And this right here is where the novel's heart really starts to beat. Because that deep friendship, it doesn't just stay a friendship. It grows into this deep, secret love story that defies, well, everyone, from mortal kings all the way up to the gods on Mount Olympus.
And this is so crucial. Miller doesn't just frame this as a romance. It's a connection of souls. We're not talking about a simple crush here. Achilles, the greatest warrior alive, literally calls Patroclus his soul. It's like they're two halves of the same whole. And believe me, the book makes you feel that on every single page.
Of course, every epic love story needs a major obstacle, right? Well, their biggest one comes in the form of Achilles' mom, Thetis, and she's a sea goddess, so she is absolutely horrified that her divine, perfect son is so attached to a mere mortal. To her, Patroclus is just a weakness, a distraction from the glorious destiny Achilles is supposed to have.
And this is where you really see Patroclus' unwavering devotion. Thetis tries everything to split them up. First, she ships Achilles off to train with a centaur, Chiron, on some remote mountain. But does Patroclus stay behind? Nope, he follows him right into the wilderness. Then, later, Thetis tries to hide Achilles from the Trojan War by disguising him as a girl in a faraway court. Guess who follows him there, too? You got it, Patroclus. Literally, nothing can keep these two apart.
All right, Section 4, the Trojan War erupts. But you can't outrun fate forever, can you? Eventually, the real world outside their little bubble comes crashing down. The Great Trojan War kicks off, and our two lovers get dragged right into the middle of one of the most famous conflicts in history.
And man, the dominoes fall fast. So Paris of Troy runs off with Helen, who's the wife of a Greek king. Uh-oh, a blood oath means all the Greek heroes, including Achilles, have to go to war. And to make things even worse, there's this dark prophecy hanging over everything. Achilles is going to get all the glory he ever wanted at Troy, but he's also fated to die there, right after he kills the great Trojan hero Hector. All the pieces are set for an epic tragedy, and it's all kicked off by a horrifying sacrifice from the Greek commander Agamemnon.
So once they all get to Troy, you realize the main conflict isn't even Greek versus Trojan. Nope, a super toxic feud breaks out inside the Greek camp itself, between their two biggest players, Achilles and the army's commander, Agamemnon. This whole thing just becomes a battle of pride, a clash of two huge egos, and it's going to have devastating consequences.
So here's how it all spirals. Agamemnon, in a massive power trip, publicly humiliates Achilles by stealing his war prize, a young woman named Briseis. Achilles is, of course, deeply insulted. His pride is shattered, so he just quits. He pulls himself and his elite soldiers completely out of the war. He swears he won't fight again until Agamemnon gives him a public apology. But Agamemnon is just as proud, so that's not happening. And the result? Without their best warrior, the Greeks start getting absolutely slaughtered.
And we're on to Section 5, a tragic, epic ending. This stalemate, this whole mess born from two men's pride, is what leads us right into the story's devastating, epic climax. The Greek army is about to be wiped out, and that desperation is going to force a truly impossible choice.
So Patroclus has been working as a medic, and he just can't stand there and watch his friends get killed anymore. Achilles still refuses to fight, so Patroclus comes up with this wild, daring plan. He says, "I'll put on your divine armor, I'll lead the army." He's hoping that just the sight of Achilles on the battlefield will be enough to scare the Trojans into running.
And at first, the plan works like a charm. The Trojans see that famous golden armor and they panic. They just flee in terror. Patroclus becomes this incredible, unlikely hero. But he gets carried away. He pushes too far. And that's when the god Apollo, who's on the Trojan side, steps in. He strikes Patroclus from behind, stuns him, leaves him totally vulnerable. And that's when Hector, the Trojan prince, delivers the final, fatal blow.
When the news gets back to Achilles, his reaction isn't just sadness, it's not just grief. He goes absolutely berserk. We're talking about a world-ending, cataclysmic rage. The person he loved, his other half, his soul, has been killed. The greatest warrior on earth is just completely broken, and all that's left inside him is this burning need for revenge.
So Achilles storms back into battle with one single purpose: kill Hector. And he does, fulfilling the first part of that terrible prophecy. But if you want to understand the depth of his devastation, just listen to his final wish. He gives an order that when he dies, and he knows it's coming, his ashes must be mixed with Patroclus's, so they can finally be together for all of eternity.
Which brings us to our last section, why we still weep. So why? Why does this ancient story, retold for today, hit us so hard? Let's quickly break down the big themes that make this book so powerful and so timeless.
Really, it's the mix of all these huge universal themes that just wrecks you. You've got this incredible, soul-deep love story, but it's constantly being pushed up against the crushing reality of fate and the sheer brutality of war. You get to watch Patroclus find himself, find his own strength. But in the end, all of it, every thread, gets swallowed up by one single, overwhelming emotion: grief. A grief so huge it doesn't just end the story, it fuels the entire final act and seals Achilles' own tragic fate.
And if you were to chart the emotional journey of reading this book, it would probably look something like this. Yeah, fate and war are there. They're the backdrop. But the experience is completely dominated by the highest highs of love and the absolute lowest lows of grief. There are two sides of the very same coin, and Madeline Miller makes sure you feel both of them with just devastating intensity.
So in the end, yeah, all the warnings are true. This book will ruin you. It takes a classic myth and turns it into this achingly human love story that will absolutely 100% break your heart. And as you're sitting there, book closed, probably with tears streaming down your face, you'll find the weirdest thing happens. You'll want to do it all over again. You'll want to feel that beautiful pain one more time. So I guess the only question left for you is, are you ready?